Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint IAS. I'm Varun Kohler, and today we are going to start discussing the UPSC General Studies paper 2, right? So as you might know that the UPSC Studies paper 2 comprises of Constitution, that is Indian polity, governance part, which have self-help group and other topics, and international affairs, right? So we're going to start with the constitution-based questions, right? So if you think about in the constitution-based questions, you have two type of questions. One is the applied part, which is coming from the latest, happenings which are here in newspapers. You have to go through current affairs all throughout the year, right? Continuously read every day to be able to answer it well. Read a lot of opinions in editorials, etc. On the other hand, they're purely factual questions. So in this video, we look at a couple of factual questions and a couple of applied questions. So. Right. Okay. Just to have an idea before we start, let's look at the total weightage of constitution-based questions, and it was 120 marks. The total questions were 10, which was a lot more than previous years. So 120 marks is a lot of a number, right? In a paper of 250 marks, nearly 50%. So this is a question which came, and this can be categorized as a factual question, right? So the question was, under what circumstances can financial emergency be proclaimed by the President of India? What consequences follow when such a declaration remains in force, right? And now, this is an unexpected question, but it is a factual question. So because it's a factual question, I say that this is something that you should definitely attempt, and you should get maximum marks out of this, right? And any factual questions, if it's for 10 marks, you can score 7 to 8, right? 7 to 8 marks out of 10 here. So it's a high scoring area, right? Let's just look at the provisions. So obviously, Article 360, if the president is satisfied that a situation has arisen whereby the financial stability or credit of India or of any part of the territory thereof is threatened, he may, by a proclamation, make a declaration to that effect. And this may be revoked through subsequent proclamations. So this is the basis, right? So in case, so in the first part, you've been asked this, that a situation has arisen whereby financial stability or credit of India or any part of the territory thereof is threatened. So this is the exact thing you have to quote to get maximum credit. Now, obviously, majority of you might not remember this. So I would definitely suggest to you that you should have a basic idea. So financial stability or credit of India, I think everybody would have written, but of any territory thereof might not. You might not remember this part. So just to remember, let's say we're in Punjab and there are a lot of financial difficulty, there's a lot of debt. So financial stability of Punjab is affected. So the Union of India itself can actually say that we can have a financial emergency. The same way, let's take the example of the NPA issue. Now, if we extrapolate the public sector banks to the state, the definition of state, right? So again, a financial emergency can be imposed on the basis of the fact that there's a lot of NPA issues in the PSUs that is a part of the state, right? Okay. Now, obviously, this is something I'm extrapolating, right, from the definitions of the state. Okay. Now, what other things can happen, right? So the Article 360 says that the financial emergency should be laid before each house of the Parliament shall cease to operate at the expiration of 2 months, unless before the expiration of that period it has been approved by resolution of both houses of Parliament, right? And the Union, shall extend to the giving of directions to any state to observe such canons of financial propriety as may be specified in direction, and to giving of such directions as the President may deem necessary and adequate for the purpose. So this part is the answer to the second part, that what all the conditions, right, what consequence follow when such a declaration remains in force. The other things what can happen is that the salaries and allowances of any class, of all classes in connection with the services of the state, can be changed. Okay, then right, a provision of requiring all the money bills or the other bills, right, Now, if let's say even a money bill is passed in the union government or in the state government, it shall be reserved for the consideration of the president. Now, this is something I'm pretty sure majority of the people would have missed in the exam. And obviously, even the very interestingly, normally the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, their salaries are not reduced. But in this case, the financial emergency case, the president can actually issue directions for a reduction of salaries and allowances for any class of persons, right, including the judges. And they have specifically mentioned that yes, even the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, their salary can be affected. Okay. Now, normally, when we write an answer for GS2, right, I prefer a framework, right? So my framework normally is that I look at a quote. So I normally want to start with a quote, right? Judge or famous dignitary. So here we have a quote, right? B.R. Ambedkar claimed that the Indian Federation was unique, as during times of financial emergency, it would convert itself into an entirely unitary system, right? So in India, the emergency provisions are such that the constitution itself, enables the federal government to acquire the strength of unitary government wherever the situation demands, and such urgent needs, right, should basically, idea is that all passive methods should be exhausted, and emergency should be the last weapon, right, as it affects the federal nature of the government. Obviously, there are other types of emergencies in case you want to know, though you don't really need to mention this in the answer. The nature of emergency, is normally of three types: national emergency, the failure of constitution, machinery in states, and financial emergency. Do remember, the financial emergency has never been imposed, right? And if the president is satisfied that there is an economic situation in which the financial stability or credit of India is threatened, he or she can declare financial emergency, and it has to be approved by both the houses within 2 months. And it can be, operated as long as the situation demands, and can be revoked by a subsequent proclamation. Now, what are the consequences? Obviously, we have talked about that from the articles, but in the answer, you have to start jotting them down. So, during the operation of financial emergency, the executive authority of the union extends to giving directions to state to observe certain canons. This is directly verbatim from the Article 360. Now, these directions, as I said, can, if you're an IAS officer, your salary can get reduced. If you are a judge of the Supreme Court, your salary can be reduced. So, and besides that, we already talked about the fact that yes, if there's a money bill passed by the parliament or by the state government, it shall be reserved for the consideration of the President of India. So that was the extra part which we realized that most people would have missed in the answer, right? Okay, let's look at the next question. Now, a very interesting question, I would say. EVMs have been in news, right? And they have been challenged again and again, right, on the basis that they're not secure. In the whole of 2017 were filled with a lot of articles on this, right, whether EVMs are safe or they are not, right? So again, so that's something that I would definitely say that you should go through in detail. There are a couple of articles. There's a FAQ on security features on the ECI EVMs. This is on 9th of April 2017, right? And basically, the idea was that can EVMs be tampered, right? In case, let's say, if you don't know what's a EVM, the idea was to overcome certain problems associated with the ballot papers and taking advantage of the development of technology so that people can cast their votes correctly without any resultant ambiguity, and removing the possibilities of invalid votes, right? Totally. The commission, right, the election commission in 1977 December mooted the idea of EVMs, and the law was amended by Parliament in December 88, and a new section 61A of the Representation of People Act 1951 empowered the commission, that is the election commission, to use voting machines. And the amended provision came in March of 1989. Okay, so since 2000, EVMs have been used in 107 general elections to state assemblies and 3 general elections, right, in Lok Sabha, that is 2004, 9 and 14. Okay, so you should get this kind of an introduction, right, before, even if you start talking about the challenges, right? Now, so what are the challenges, right? Obviously the first thing is, are these machines tamper-proof, right? So first, obviously, the challenge is software and technical. So what they have done is that the EVMs have been, the task of making the machines have been exclusively given to BEL and ECIL. So obviously, you expect them to not have any kind of problems in having security, right? So even if you think that, okay, it's an electronic device, anything should be hackable. But the idea was that after M2, there are the versions, right? M1, M2, M3, right? So now we have M2 and M3, right? So EVMs are not possible to be, according to the Election Commission, that this is not possible that you will be able to hack it or manipulate it by messengers, right? So manufacturers, that is. So the idea is that the task of making machines, right, because that's the given the software used is burned into one-time programmable, chip, right, the OTP. So it can't be altered with, right, or tampered with. So administrative, obviously, there have been a lot of measures which have done from storing the machines in a strongholds to moving them into polling stations through 3 levels of checks and 3 mock polls, right? And political party representatives are always present to witness and certify the entire process. And additionally, it is videographed. Technical independent watchdog is also there. There's a 5 professor team of technical advisory from top IITs. The judicial scrutiny is done, right? There are a lot of judicial pronouncements, right? We have not mentioned them in the slides, but there's a Madras High Court 2001, there is Delhi High Court 2004, Karnataka High Court 2004, there's the Kerala High Court 2002, and Bombay High Court Nagpur bench in 2004. And they have held that EVMs are credible, reliable, and totally tamper-proof. And the Honorable Karnataka High Court has held that this intervention is undoubtedly, that is EVM, a great achievement in the electronic and computer technology and a national pride. So a lot of positive things are there, right? But there have been, complaints against the EVMs as well, right? Most recently, the BSP General Secretary complained after the election in UP, right? The challenges obviously are public faith and trust. Because see, at the end of the day, electoral system works on public faith and trust. There's nothing else except trust. It must be allowed that the EVMs should be put on display and people should try to hack them, right? But on the other hand, we should not allow the trust to be shaken. The political parties should question, right? There have been existing systems which have been there, right, for this. EVM's greatest challenge is actually having a VVPAT, right? That there has to be a verified paper trail, right? And this should be implemented in every EVM. And if more manpower is needed, right? So more, there's this doubt or discrepancies about the working of EVMs, it should be solved. And technical and administrative staff, if needed, should be obviously be there, right? And finances can be a challenge to introduction of VVPAT and other more safeguards, and this should never be a consideration in such an important part. Okay, just in case you want to know, I think most of you have voted, so you would have an idea what EVM looks like. So you can look at the control unit, right? And on the other hand, the balloting unit. In the control unit is the polling officer presses his button, and only after that the voter can cast his vote. So this is the control unit, in case you might have not seen this one, but you definitely should have seen these in case you have voted, right? So there's a candidate lamp. It lights up when the corresponding candidate button is pressed, as you can see right here. And the ballot paper slot is also there with names of candidates and the party symbol. There's a candidate button, as you can see here. You have to press this. I think all of you would have done this. Okay, and so this can only be done if the other side, the polling officer, is pressing it, right? Okay, and here you have the display, paper slip viewing window. The paper slip containing poll symbol and name of the candidate is visible to the voter for 7 seconds in the VVPAT. So this actually verifies this, and this is something that definitely should be implemented in all polling stations. Way forward, election commission must allow experts to nominate by any registered parties to examine a random sample of new machines stored anywhere in the country. They do have certain similar procedures, right? Uh, like at the time of FLC, that is first level checking. EVM is used in the election by the engineers. Is checked in the presence of political party representatives. There also the check when at least 1,000 votes are cast by representative political parties on 5% of the EVMs randomly selected. Now maybe this can be done more often so that this doesn't lead to any kind of distrust. Secondly, election rules should be amended to allow a voter to register an objection if he suspects that paper slip did not match the party he voted for. And if in a booth more than 20 objections, it should be mandatory for the EVM count to be matched with the paper trail. And maybe there should even be a certain number of objections after that, the re-polling should be called. Third, there should be a publicity campaign to verify and help the voters that they understand the EVM, and they should be able to verify their own vote and register an objection then and there, right? And the rule about replacement of malfunctioning EVM within 30 minutes of repolling should be strictly adhered to. Now, this is something that which has not been done. That right, sufficient publicity should be given to the nature of malfunctionings so that EVMs, the election commission may develop guidelines on these. Right, so that these are the major things. And finally, the counting process should be altered slightly. The counting should begin with the matching of EVM and the paper trail count in one randomly booth for each counting table. If there is a mismatch, the rest of the counting should proceed as it does today. Right. So, as a measure of abundant caution, candidate who finished second and third should be able to call for paper trail matching in any booth of their choice before the result is declared. So, this also should be done. Right. So this was about EVMs. I'll post the links of the various articles which have come in PIB. You should also search, right? And a very, very good answer can be written. Okay, let's look at the next question now. So next question was, why do you think committees are considered to be useful for parliamentary work? Discuss in this context the role of the estimate. Over the years, there have been a decline in number of sittings. So while the Lok Sabha met for an average of 130 days in the 1950s, these sittings have come down to 70 days in 2000s. So lesser number of sittings indicates Parliament is able to transact less number of businesses. There's less time to discuss. There's a lot of adjournment. The 16 Lok Sabha, the Lok Sabha function only for 77% vis-a-vis Rajya Sabha, which function only 47% of the overall time. And the low rate of functioning reflects the time lost due to disruptions, which reduces the number of questions which may be asked orally. And hence, it is important that these committees be there, right? So, the other reason, obviously, is the fact that the work done by Parliament in modern times is technical in nature, right? And the time is limited, and there's a lot of time, you need to call the secretary, etc., and more technical experts to discuss something. It cannot obviously therefore give close consideration, that is the Parliament, to all legislative and other matters. So a good deal of matters is transacted in the committees of the House, known as Parliamentary Committee. And normally the Parliamentary Committee, in case you don't know, it means a committee which is appointed or elected by the House or nominated by the Speaker, which works under the direction of the Speaker and presents its report to the House or to the Speaker and the Secretariat, which is provided by the Lok Sabha Secretariat, right? So the committee is useful. Why? Because obviously the work done is complicated, right? Technical in nature, and the volume also has increased. It can give close consideration to all legislative and other matters. It can also allow people participate in the committees and they can call for representation. It basically increases the efficiency and expertise of the Parliament. It allows a lot of consensus on various bills, right? Because even people from the opposition are part of the parliamentary committees on some laws, etc. So definitely they would actually give their views and put some amendments which allow for ease in functioning of the Parliament. Then obviously inputs from other stakeholders and experts allow the law-making process to become more participatory. But it's not just about the other stakeholders; it's about the people at large. Okay, so the second part was about the estimate committee. It was constituted for the first time in 1950. It is consisting of 30 members, and the chairperson is appointed by the speaker. And the minister cannot be elected as the member of the committee, if right. And if a member after selection is appointed a minister, he will be ceased to be a committee member. Now, obviously, what's the usefulness? It reports what economies, improvements in organization, efficiency, or administrative reform consistent with the policy underlying the estimates may be effected, right? So it basically focuses on a lot of economy. It suggests alternate policies to bring out economy and efficiency in administration. It examines whether money which was laid out was spent in the limits of the policy implied in the estimates. Suggests the form in which estimates shall be presented to the Parliament. The committee does not exercise its functions in relation to such public sector undertakings allotted to the committee, right? So this was about the first three questions which we chose to discuss, right? Do comment, try these questions and write to us, right? And do like and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.